I'll just say welcome to everybody. And, there's a saying when we teach leadership, you have to do the best you can where you are with what you have. That's what you have to do when you're leading. And I like this quote we're presenting from Henry David Thoreau, who's an American poet. He says, if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors, which means and tries to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with success unexpected in common hours. So the whole point of leadership is really to know the direction you're moving and to keep moving in that direction despite whatever obstacles. I want to tell you that one time I had to teach leadership in Ghana to some very senior health officials. And the driver took me to the wrong place. And when I got there, there was no electricity. And the person who was supposed to present the handouts didn't get there. So I'm sitting with 10 senior health officials in Ghana. And they're ready and waiting to hear about leadership. So I just started to teach them what I know how to teach without any slides or projector or handouts or electricity. And, when we summed up the day at the end, they said that was the most powerful lesson of the whole day, that you just have to begin with whatever you have. And, life is filled with obstacles, and it's also filled with what we'll call breakdowns, like when a car breaks down. And if you're committed to something, you keep moving, even in the face of the obstacle. So that's the first leadership lesson for today, is how do you move even in the midst of many, many obstacles. So please, I'm going to make a request today. Please send on the chat any questions you have. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, we'll do this. All right, so today is about the results model. Thank you for people who sent homework. We're going to talk about that later, and thank you to all of you who have thought about your purpose and what you're envisioning in the future. And also thank you to all of you who have joined my YouTube site and watched me teach at Boston University. That is still open with that link, and please do continue to watch it. We took that during my class at Boston University, the same class that Manal was part of the previous year. So today we're going to talk about using the results model. And this is about moving from vision to action. So at the top, you can see purpose and vision. And I know this was made available to you and some of you started to fill it out. And the bottom is your current situation. So here's the steps on using the results model. First, clarify your purpose. And by the way, feel free to send your purpose into us. Also, feel free to download my book and use some more exercises there. But it's really important to know what you're up to, either in life. Oh, Armin is smiling now. We're glad about that. Okay. Shukran. I'm glad. Clarify your purpose, create the vision of success. What does it look like visually? And you can do this in lots of ways, the vision of success. One of the ways I want to share with you that's in the book, but not in the slides, is, and this is something I'm doing for myself again now for the next period of my life. You can actually take a large piece of paper or a poster board, and you can take some old magazines and start to cut out photographs that appeal to you, either places or situations or people, and you paste those on a board and you start to look at them. And every time I've done that, those things started to come into my life. And that's because you see an image, so many things. Even the international life I used to have, I had that first on a vision board of living in several places. So all those things came to pass. So after you get this vision, and this is what we're going to work on today, you have to identify a specific measurable result that is going to move you closer to your vision of success. So this is the first step you'll take. After you have a measurable result, you analyze your current situation, where are you now, then what are the obstacles in the way of achieving the result, And then you begin to choose some actions that address the obstacles. The final step is to frame your challenge as a question, as a leadership question. How will I achieve this result in light of the obstacles? Now, a very important thing to do is to notice that actions are at number 6. Most people want to jump to act before they think. We just have this impulse to move. But what the results model really will do is it will slow you down to make the analysis first. And as I spoke about last week, we use this results model, it's also called the challenge model, with teams of people, and they work on it together. And these challenge models that look like this are hung up on the walls of health centers all over the world that define what they're moving towards. Okay, so last week we talked about identifying your purpose in the presentation, knowing your purpose and envisioning a better future. We talked about your vision. So you have to do that first. After you do that, we want to talk to you that you have an image of the future, but you also need to know the current reality, where you are now. It's very important. Without knowing the way things really are, you won't be able to move effectively towards your vision. So the last bullet says, you know, when you're going on a journey and you're trying to map your route, you have to know where you're starting from. How can you say, how do you get to Cairo? I don't know. Where are you beginning? So that's what the results model is going to ask you, not only where you're going, but where you're coming from. Now, I spoke a little bit last week that sometimes people who have visions are called dreamers. And this means people who are not in touch with reality. If you want to be taken seriously, you will have to show that you also understand the current reality, not just your dreams. This is really critical for leadership. You can't just tell people where you're going. They're going to look at you to see if you're in reality too. It's very essential. Okay, so you also are going to use this results model to frame your leadership challenge. You lead, and this is a question that you're going to share with others in the form of an inquiry or a question. How are we going to achieve this result in the face of these obstacles? So the reason why we are teaching you to ask a good question is one of my teachers at Harvard, Dr. Heifetz, says sometimes all you need to lead is a good question. So you want to clarify your challenge in a way that inspires you and others to act. This is how you begin to lead, by asking these good questions. So when you're framing your challenge, you clarify the results and the obstacles you need to overcome, and then you ask a question, how will I accomplish the results I want in light of the obstacles I'm facing? That's the challenge. Now, this is very important. We call this a challenge, but it's not merely a nice way to say, or an optimistic way to say problem. To have a challenge, you both have to have a result you want and an obstacle that has to be overcome. So it's how do we achieve something we care about in face of the obstacles we're facing? That's the question. Problems, on the other hand, are conditions that are in the way of achieving the result. The problem is not the challenge all by itself. For example, poverty is a terrible condition, but it's not a challenge unless there's a result you want to accomplish. For example, how do we improve the health of our citizens in the light of poverty is a challenge that a health system might take on as its own. But poverty is just a terrible problem. It's not a challenge, okay? A challenge is something you choose to own and take on because you're committed to the result. A problem is something you see as occurring outside of yourself. So when you're taking on a challenge, ask yourself, here's what I always ask. Think of a challenge in your own life that you're proud of having faced. So I just want you to stop for a second and think about that. What is something you accomplished in the face of obstacles? You know, often when I teach this in medical schools or with health workers, they say, well, they wanted to finish medical school and the obstacle was there wasn't enough money in their family. So the challenge becomes, how do I finish medical school in light of the fact that there's not enough money right now? And many of them face that obstacle, and their families face that challenge in difficult ways. So just think for a minute, all of you in this seminar have faced some kind of challenge in your life. You didn't get this far without having some result you cared about and some obstacles you overcame. So facing a challenge is not new. You just have to realize it's a leadership act to do that. So what strength did it take to face this challenge? You know you had to be persistent, you had to be committed, and so I do want you to realize you've done this work already, and you've already learned lessons by facing challenges. That you have to be committed, you have to overcome obstacles, you have to not give up. All right, so this is what I want to work with you today. How do you get a result that you're committed to accomplishing that'll move you closer to your vision? So just take one aspect of your vision, and I know with some of you we did like personal visions, like want to be more healthy or have better relationships, or contribute something that's important, and just choose a result that's going to move you closer to that vision. So if you have something, getting a good grade in graduation was a challenge. How do you get, someone wrote on the chat line, how do you get a grade in face of the obstacles that the course is hard and there's not enough time and all those obstacles, but you cared enough about the result of getting the good grade. So by the way, I just wanted to say that someone wrote to me privately, getting a good grade is not the challenge by itself. Getting a good grade is a result. The challenge is, how do you get a good grade in the face of the obstacles? You have to have both the result and the obstacles to make it a challenge. There has to be something you're trying to overcome. Okay, so the slide you're looking at is about SMART results. Take one aspect of your vision, choose a result. Now, here's the criteria. And many of you may have heard this before, but to be SMART, something has to be specific. That means someone would know it happened other than you. So I'll give you an unspecific example. Just say, I want to be happier. Well, that's very hard to measure. We can't tell if you're happier. Something specific would be, I want to have more time with my friends. In fact, more time isn't right because it has to be measurable. So I want to, every week, at least go out with my friends once. That's measurable. Then appropriate has to be to where you are in your life now. We don't want to say, I want to run the country. We want to have it be something that is in relationship to where you are in your life now. And realistic, you could accomplish this with the resources at hand. And finally, time-bound, something you could achieve in 4 to 6 months. And why we say 4 to 6 months is, I'm reading some of the chat. Someone wants to have a company, which is a result, but we want to get it very SMART. And we want you to get a result you can get in 4 to 6 months, because you will forget it if it's a 1 or 2 year vision. The vision can be 1 or 2 years, but the specific measurable result is really in the next few months, something you can move. So if the result is I want to have a company, what in 4 months could you have done? Could you have done a business plan? Could you have talked to people who can contribute money? What do you actually like? Talking to 3 people who have funds in 6 months and with a business plan would be a measurable. Well, there's a question, what do I mean by measurable? Something's measurable when it actually has to have a number in it. That's how we measure. It's math. How do you measure things? With metrics, with math. Okay? So we'll take this, once again, go back to I want to have a company. So in the next 4 months, the measurable thing, I want to have one business plan that identifies 3 funders I could talk to and have meetings with them, and have 3 meetings in the next 6 months. That's measurable. 1 business plan, 3 funders, 3 meetings. You could measure it, okay? And continue to ask me questions so we can clear this up. So I want you to think about your vision, where you want to go, and start to draft some results. And you can share them with one other person and get feedback from them on, does it meet all of the SMART criteria? Does that make sense what I'm saying? Does this meet the SMART criteria? Okay, so someone said, okay, Khalid, I'm glad you got it. It's measurable. Okay, so an example of a SMART result. For example, rather than say your result is I want to lose weight, to be specific and measurable, you can say, in the next 6 months, my weight will reduce by 10%. That's very clear. So I want you to draft some results and get the hang of this and share the SMART criteria with them, and then get feedback from another person on whether this is specific and measurable, whether someone can actually see you doing it. Okay? All right, now I want to talk a little bit about your sphere of influence and control. And this is from Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's 3 spheres of activities. There's activities over which you have direct control. There's activities that you can influence. And there's activities over which you have no influence and no control. All right? So in your sphere of control, I have to tell you, because this is also back to the religion. What can you control? You can control your own words, actions, and attitudes. This is where you have real power in life. Now, you also, by the way, stop and ask me any questions about this. This part is really important to understand. And also tell me if I'm speaking too fast. Anyone, please let me know. There's also things you can influence in your sphere of influence. You can influence the actions and thoughts of your families, friends, colleagues, and work environments. People you're in direct contact with, you can influence. Or if you write a blog or you write a newspaper article, you can influence people broader than just the people you directly talk to. Here's what's important to understand. What's outside of our control or influence? Normally, you can't control the weather. And most of us in our current positions don't control or influence national policy or the actions of other organizations or thoughts and behaviors of people with whom we have no contact. It's now what's interesting about your sphere of influence is we often talk about these things in this third sphere that are outside of our control or influence. And this is kind of, I hate to say it, but it's a bit of a waste of your time. Now, it's interesting and it's fun to talk about these things, and especially in a terrible situation like you are all in now, this is what captures people's thinking. But if you want to move something forward, you've got to think about something you actually can influence, okay? So I want your result to be something you can affect in your life, all right? So when we focus our thoughts and energies that are on things that are out of our control and influence, we waste precious time and resources. Okay, so staying realistic and time-bound. There's a nice quote from leadership. It says, think big, start small, act now. So don't wait to the future to begin to lead, all right? You can begin this week. Your measurable result needs to be realistic. It shouldn't be so difficult you will never attain it with the time and resources. And should be enough of a stretch that you will need to learn to lead. So, I mean, you said sphere of influence, but you have to tell me more about that in the chat. Also, is there a contradiction between staying? No, of course not. No, these are the 2 skills. You have to have both skills. You have to be realistic and you have to plan for a wonderful future. You can't get to that future unless you are realistic. And that's what strong leaders are able to do, those 2 sides of it. They're able to balance that. So if anybody can just draft a result, like sort of tell us what your vision was. Yes, yes. Thanks. So tell us what your vision is and maybe one result that is time-bound. You can be defined in time, state when you will accomplish it. Sure, Amy, you're welcome. So Ahmed says, I'm studying for an MBA, plus work, plus working on startup project there. How can I act small and start with a startup? So what you do with a startup is you have to break it into small pieces. With the startup, what will you get done in the next 4 months? Will you have a business plan? Will you have meetings with investors? Will you begin to bring staff? You know, very small pieces. That is acting small. You might have a vision of a company that's wonderful, but on these time-bound results, what can you do in this next 1 to 6 months to accomplish something significant, but you won't forget what you're doing? Okay, so you're now in the brainstorming phase, but even that, we want to get measurable, Ahmed. What is the outcome of will you have a plan? Yeah, I know you feel like you're in a hurry, but that's life. It's life unfolds at a certain pace. So what you need to have in the next few months is a very concrete business plan. And you need to have your plan looked at by some of your professors, and you need feedback about that plan. So if you're in an MBA program, you want to take advantage of those professors and put together a business plan and get advice. That's something you could do in the next 3 months. One fully written business plan with feedback from 3 professors. That would be a measurable result. That would move you forward. You can't do any business without a business plan. What's the product or service? What is the potential client or customer base? You know, all the things that go, even my own small business of being a consultant and a coach, I had to have a business plan for, and someone helped me with that to get very concrete. What am I providing? What are my services? What are my products? And the new service I'm adding is webinar teaching. That's a new product for me, and I'm learning how to do it, but I wanted to add that to my list of services and products. Okay. So put questions on the chat. And so again, I want you to write this SMART result specific so that you and others know exactly what you're working towards. Measurable to allow you to evaluate how much you're achieving. Appropriate within your sphere of influence. Realistic, achievable within the time and resources available. And time-bound, having a defined period for completion. Okay, so we're asking a question. The dreams are not about me. I dream for others. Well, and I usually can't make them work out alone. Yes, you need to collaborate to achieve goals. How can I achieve milestones? Well, you know, I'm not sure, Rhonda, specifically what you mean when you say you dream for others. Are you dreaming for others? You're dreaming with others. You know, for example, you know, I dream that my children would graduate from college, right? But I have to I have to collaborate with them to see that they have that dream too. I can't actually make them have that dream. I have to talk to them in a way that they see a future for themselves. So yes, leadership is all about collaboration, and there's something in the book that I do want you to read. There's a whole chapter called Aligning Stakeholders. You can't, there's no such thing as leading alone. You can't make any dreams work out alone. It's all about your relationships with other people. Can you talk to them about your results and your vision in a way that inspires them? That's leadership. But first we got to get the vision and the results, and then we'll talk about how you speak about it. So once you've identified the result, for example, I mean, the result I'm going to use from this example about a startup company is, let's say your result is you have a business plan in the next 3 months, and three people have given you feedback on it. They could be professors or other advisors. People who know something have given you feedback. So then you have to say, what's in the way of achieving this? Why am I here at the current situation, which is no business plan, but sort of brainstorming? And what is in the way? So I'm not sure what your obstacles are, and maybe, Ahmed, you need to tell me what your obstacles are, but what is in the way of getting there? It could be time, it could be other priorities. By the way, we always want to put in our obstacles that time and resources, and actually it's not time or resources. Let me tell you, if you write down your obstacles are time and resources. If you write down that your obstacle is time, I didn't hear exactly. Yeah, what are the obstacles, Ahmed? to accomplishing this? Let's say it is a business plan. What is in the way? What are the obstacles? What is stopping you from doing this? And if it's, so I'm going to say, if you say you don't have enough time, the critical thing here is that time is, it's not that you don't have enough time, it's that you have other priorities taking up your time. So you have, yes, time and fun, time and fun. It's always time and fun. I just want to tell you, there's no project in the world where the obstacle is not time and fun, okay? But here's the thing. If it's time, the problem, the obstacle is not time. It's that you have other priorities in your life. You have competing priorities that are taking your time. So you have to begin to reorganize. Now, yes, of course, my big problem is you have to work 12 hours. Of course it is. It's, oh, every time you try to lead something and bring something new and great into existence, you're already doing something. That's the whole nature of it. I teach leadership to a pharmaceutical company made up of scientists. And we talk about this subject a lot. They want to bring new things into existence, but they're already busy working on the work they have. How can they think about new things when they're working 12 hours a day on their current projects? Well, that's the challenge of leadership. How can I bring something new into existence? Yeah, if I left the work, what if I fail? Well, I can't. There's a really great question about what if I fail. What would you do if you weren't afraid of failing? I'm going to ask that question 3 times. What would you do with your life if you weren't afraid of failing? All right, I'm going to ask you all one more time. What would you do if you weren't afraid of failing? Really? This fear of failing, I mean, we're going to fail. The research on great startups, you've got to hear this research. People who are really successful businessmen have failed more often than others. Really, I'm going to tell you one more time. Really successful businessmen have failed more. You're right, I'll educate every person I meet in my life. That's what you would do if you wouldn't fail. So this fear of failing is actually the wrong place to put your energy. Great leaders fail often and learn from it. I'll tell you who doesn't fail. You got to hear this really well. I'll tell you who never fails. People who don't try to do anything never fail. If you want to never fail, don't try to do anything. I'm serious. If you try to do something, you're going to fail sometimes. And hopefully you're going to learn from try again and again, as Ahmed says. Try again and again. You know, that's how people learn, by things not working. That's, you know, in my book, the 5th practice is learn and adapt. You have to continuously learn. Okay, so once you get the obstacles, like, I'll tell you the root cause. So if you say your obstacle is not enough funds, you have to analyze why you don't have enough funds. Yes, and as Ayman says, it's about coming back from failure. You can't stay there forever. You got to get up and keep going. So, let's say not enough funds is the obstacle. So you have to say, do a root cause analysis. Why are there not enough funds? Now, I'm going to tell you about root cause. If we only treat the symptom, we can easily see. You're not going to eliminate the cause of those symptoms. For example, if you only treat the heat of a fever, you may fail to identify the underlying infection that's causing it, okay? And you want to choose actions that address the underlying problem. Okay, so you can get the book from, is that my book? Yes, that's my book. You can get that book from Amazon. Okay, link is on Facebook page too. Thanks, Manon. A torrent will do it. Okay, so we want to get to the root cause of why there are no funds. So when you have an obstacle, let's say you have an obstacle, why of no funds? Ask, why is that true? Why is that happening? And then you ask why at least 3 times. This is from a if you're in business school, you know this is a Japanese quality improvement tool to ask 5 whys. So So I'm going to stay with the obstacle a minute. So, for example, let's say you don't have enough funds to start a new startup project. So you say, why? Well, I don't have investors. Well, why don't you have investors? Because I haven't taken the time to talk to them. Okay, and what's another why? Well, I don't have a clear enough plan for them to invest in. I haven't defined the thinking behind my project well enough so that other people do. I have to, actually, the root cause, I have to tell you, of not enough funds is you have not won other people over to understand well enough to invest in you. It's not lack of funds. There's actually a lot of funds in the world, but you have not brought them to your project yet because you haven't talked to people to understand it well enough. So the root cause of no funds is not there are no funds in the world. It's that you have not aligned your stakeholders yet to support you. So you really have to know that. So how can we achieve a business plan? Let's say it's a business plan of 3 months. Or how can we achieve funding for our project in light of the fact that we haven't talked to people about it? Yes, sometimes one why can make sometimes one why can make you take action. As long as it's the root cause, something that you do something will change. So how can we get funds for our project in light of the fact that we don't have a clear business plan and we haven't talked to the right people yet to get them? That's the work. The question is the work. And this is not a question you're going to answer in one day or maybe even in 1 month. You want to ask yourself a hard question. How am I going to get funding in light of the fact that I don't really have a business plan yet that people would agree to or want to fund? This is the question that you're going to live inside for a while. And you'll see this question at the bottom of all the results models. And I want you, even before you get to action, to ask a good question at the bottom of the model. How am I going to achieve this result in the light of these obstacles? And you want to ask yourself and other people that question as often as possible. How are we going to get here in the light of these obstacles? That's your leadership challenge. That's not problem solving, that's framing a leadership challenge. Okay, now let's see, about failure. I would hope. Well, Rhonda, you sort of asked the life question. Well, here's the thing about failing in relationships, that's how you learn. I mean, I would do some writing and thinking about what you have learned about that. And maybe if you have causes you have no idea about, you need to ask some people what were the causes. You have to, you might have to find out from people what you did that caused that. Get to the root cause of that yourself. And you might have to talk to other people to find that out. It's a hard thing. Okay, so taking action. Action is the last thing. Once your challenge is framed as a question, you start to identify the actions to address the root cause, move you closer to the results. You also use your question to share your challenge with others. Okay, and actually, Wanda, I'll take your question. How do I fix my relationships in light of the fact that I don't know the reason why they didn't work? Okay, how do I do that? Well, the actions you might take is talk to people to find the reason why. You want to be very proactive about this in your life. If things aren't working, you want to know why, and you want to know what you need to do to make them work. I'm really serious. And nobody's born knowing how to do this easily. All of us have to learn how to do this. Okay, so here we'll go back to the challenge model or the results model. First, review your purpose and write it at the top. So this is the homework you can send in to us, and we'll talk about tomorrow for the discussion. Review your purpose and then write it at the top of the model. Envision the future. And by the way, we're going to talk about some of these that you've sent in. Envision the future. Write a few words. Put those in the vision cloud. Then choose a measurable result. Pick one aspect of your vision, create one specific measurable result that will move you closer, that you can do in 1 to 6 months. Step 4, assess the current situation. What conditions describe this? Write a few at the bottom. What is both enabling things that, so for example, if the result is a business plan, then some of the enabling factors is you have some friends that you're talking to, you're brainstorming, and some of the difficult conditions is, that you're working 12 hours a day. So now you have the gap between the result and the current situation. Then identify the step 5, the obstacles and the root causes. Make a list of obstacles you have to overcome to move from the current situation to the result. And then ask why several times to analyze the underlying root cause of these obstacles. Step 6, write your challenge set question at the bottom of the model. Ask, how will I achieve this result in light of these obstacles? At the end. And then develop and implement an action plan and pick some actions that you want to take, and then start to monitor your progress towards those results. You need to take some action. Now, once you've filled out the model, which we'll talk about in a minute, this is what people are talking about. You then have to align your stakeholders. The stakeholders are the people who can help you, or even the people who can hurt you. It's critically important to identify the people you need to involve in accomplishing your result. Stakeholders can provide you resources for approval. They can participate, but they can also support or oppose you. You need to know who those people are, because they can help you or hinder, which means to stop you. It is important for you I'm missing a word, talk to your stakeholders, to know your stakeholders. Okay. The second bullet, you need to understand the people who can support you and those who can prevent you. To lead effectively, you need to know what these stakeholders are interested in and what they're concerned about. In short, you need to put yourself in their shoes to fully understand them. All of leadership is about knowing who is around you and what they care about and what you need to do to get their support, because they have resources you may need. They have resources you need, including material resources, money, knowledge, or decision-making power. Oftentimes, resources exist, but they're untapped or unused because people who could use them are not skilled at aligning with stakeholders. We saw this in health centers all over poor villages that they didn't have enough chairs for the waiting room, but there was a community center and they borrowed chairs during waiting room hours. They went and talked to another organization and borrowed chairs for the waiting room. They found all kinds of resources in the community that they didn't use before because they didn't understand they needed to talk to other people to get them. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, who are the stakeholders that need to be involved in accomplishing your result? Who could help you? Who could hinder? Hinder means stop. What resources do they have that could support this result? What are their interests? What do they want? What are their concerns? And what do I need to align them? I want to tell you, I'll give you an example on interests and concerns. So I was working in Kenya, and the health center wanted to get an ambulance, and they didn't have any funds. So they went to the local politicians, and they said, if you contribute some funds to helping us get an ambulance, we will help you put on a big public ceremony and invite the press, in which you will get to show how great you are by bringing this ambulance to the community. Because what politicians want, what do they want? They want publicity. And what are they worried about? What are their concerns? They're worried about other people will take publicity away from them. So what you need to do to align them is tell them they can get all of the credit. Okay? So this health center got their ambulance by aligning politicians who had interests. Their interests were not serving patients like the health workers. Their interest was in getting more publicity. And that's what politicians want. So you have to know that to align them. What do they? I'll tell you, if you can really put yourself in other people's shoes and find out what they want, you're going to make a lot of progress in all of your projects. Okay, so Manar put the link up. Here's the book. You can download it, but she put the link up, and all the exercises are there. So now I'll just take some questions. Feel free to do it on the speaker or by writing to me or to Manar, so you're not comfortable in English. But I am curious to see your questions, and I'm also going to look at the models that people did send in for homework. Hold on. Basma sent in a results model. Now, you'll have to tell me if you don't want me. Is it all right if I share this?
Yeah, it is. I sent her an email.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to read what. So, and the reason why I ask is sometimes people are a little bit shy about their purpose. Because it's a big thing, our purpose in life. But so her purpose is to be an innovative computer and system engineer, to contribute to increasing development and to invent things that would benefit people of the world. Well, I think that's a very great purpose, and I think it's something you could do. You know, I don't share this. I try. Unfortunately, I'm also a proud mother. And my son is an engineer as well, and he works for NASA. And as we know, there was a very great Egyptian scientist who worked for NASA too. And in fact, the head of his laboratory in California, Jet Propulsion Labs, is headed by a Lebanese scientist. And so all these things are possible. And you can create things that will benefit the people in the world. I'm very clear about that. So the vision, and by the way, the vision doesn't have to be time-bound. Only the result is time-bound. And she says, it's the thing I imagine all the time. I see myself with a team of professional engineers trying to develop new software or useful program. I also see myself making a presentation. This is perfect. This is exactly what a vision should look like. Making a presentation describing my first paper in front of professional programmers and computer experts. That's perfect. That's exactly the vision you should keep in your head. Just see yourself doing it. And then your measurable result is very good. Getting high grades in subjects, computer science. So you should, which you can be real specific, which computer science grades. So you would say in the next 4 to 6 months, you want to have this grade in this course, very specific. So the obstacles to that are you don't have the skills, you're not a professional speaker in English, and you don't know many things about computer systems and programming language. One of the innovations they're talking about in America now for secondary school students, for girls especially, is to teach them programming language, to have them see what's possible for their future. So the actions is learn online. So I would make this really specific. So you will take, this specific course to improve this skill, and also what you want to do for your English language, make that really specific too. I want to, if you're going to take a course, if you're going to read books, if you're going to have more conversation with English speakers. By the way, that is the best way to do it, is have more conversation with English. You should get on, Basma, and talk to me now. That's the way to improve your English. And the trouble with improving language is you have to be willing to not look good. Because the only way you learn, as all of you out there know who speak English, the only way you learned was by trying. So the current situation is you just finished a prep student. Isn't that so great at the Faculty of Engineering? That's so great. And you want to join this department. That's really great. So your vision doesn't have to be time-bound. So I think that's actually very clear, Basma. I think that's a very clear thing, and I think you can do that. So if you want to write me any questions about that, please just send anything that you want to say. This is the one I just went over, the results model. How to be an innovative computer and system engineer, invent new things. The vision is a team of professional engineers to develop new software. Presentation describing the first paper in front of professional programmers. Her measurable result is getting high grades in computer science courses that will allow her to prepare MS. Obstacles, not the right skills, still don't know many things, of course, and I'm not a professional speaker in English. Priority, must first learn online, improve your skills, and your current situation is this. So, Asma, the one thing you didn't do in your results model is write the challenge question, which has to have the result and the obstacle. So your challenge is, how do I get high grades in my subjects in light of the fact that I don't have some of the skills needed? So how do I get high grades in my subjects in light of the fact that I don't have some of the required skills? That's the question you're going to live inside. Oh, all right, wait, I have some questions. So Ayman wants to speak. I see that he can.
Okay. I got a small question, actually.
Yeah, sure.
I am a part of a big team, actually 30 people or something. We are working in a self-study project. So the people are all around are losing their spirit every single meeting. So I'm trying to think to get something to influence them and to regain their focus and make them much more influenced and start producing again. So
yeah,
I don't know what
you're
to do.
losing people.
Yeah, I'm losing people.
Okay. I would take this results model and do this with them. I'd say, what is the purpose of this group? What do we imagine, you know?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of this group?
The purpose of this group is to develop the first graphically processing unit in Egypt.
Okay, so say it one more time. Develop the first what in Egypt?
Graphically processing unit. The GPU is part of the computer.
Oh, that's great. So they all know that purpose, right?
Yeah, of course.
And they all know what it will look like in the future. It's like what good things will. Do they all have a shared vision? Like what will happen if we do this?
They do have the shared vision for what's going to happen in the future about this project and what's going to affect to their resume or stuff.
Right.
But still, people are losing their passion about the project. I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, you know, to keep people's interest, you have to get some accomplishments. Now, you can't get the end accomplishment, so you have to begin to define some results that they could get done in 3 months. And say, yes, we're not at the end, but you have to, they call it a milestone. You know, it's you have to get milestones on the way to the end. And get them involved in doing the analysis. What are the obstacles? So your measurable result will be a milestone, not the end.
Okay, so the keyword is milestones.
Yes, it's one of the milestones that you can get in 3 to 6 months. And have them agree to that. And then also work with them. Don't tell them what to do. By the way, don't tell them what to do.
Just let it go?
No. Have them analyze the obstacles, what is in the way, and have them choose the actions, what do they need to do, and ask them who will commit to doing each of these actions. Get their commitment to an action to do. Okay? But they'll only do it if they can see the vision of the future, something better for them in their lives and other people. And if they take part in analyzing the obstacles. And the final part of that is you have to monitor them, and when they do accomplish just an action, just a small action, acknowledge them, support them, compliment them. Thank you for doing this. It's making a difference.
Thank you so much.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so
much. Take them through the whole results model and frame the challenge at the bottom, so that everyone has the same question. How do we get to this result in the light of these obstacles? Take this whole sheet and do it with them.
The whole sheet. Okay, I will.
Okay. And send us a note. Send us a note on how that goes.
Okay, I will as soon as possible.
All right, sure.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, let me see.
So we have another
Yes.
Another one has done the homework, another results model. So
Can we put it? Yeah, I see it. Let's open
exactly.
it. Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
this
Purpose.
is from Ghada Izzat. She doesn't have a mic, but she can just like type her question.
But he's here.
Yeah, she is here.
Oh, she's here. Good. So you want to finish your master's degree? That's great. Do you know 60% of the college graduates in the world are women now? I just want to tell you that. So our vision is work. Isn't that great? So working in one of the big research companies like Google, well, that's a great vision. I even know Egyptians in America who work for Apple. We know this is possible. Okay, so the vision. So what's missing in this results model is a result. Okay, so we need a 3-month result, something you will accomplish. So no appropriate supervision. The priority action is I will do more efforts to have something to present to the initiators of the point I researched. Yes, to get some attention. Exactly. If you want to get attention, you have to tell people what you're doing. Your current situation is midway from writing my first paper and some good knowledge from the point and advance some unorganized practical experiment. How will I achieve my master's degree in face of having no appropriate supervisor? Well, you got to go get an appropriate. You have to go get an appropriate supervisor. You're going to have to make a lot of requests, and you're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have to enroll a supervisor to see why they should support you, and you're going to have to find your own supervisor. They call it a mentor. They call it someone who can. If you want to learn something, you updated. Reda, did you update this? So maybe we can send it to you. Okay. So
I did upload the modified results model for Ghada.
A new one?
Yeah, the new one. So can you just yes.
Okay, I want to finish a master's degree. I think this is the new one. I want to finish the master's degree. Your vision is working at a big research company. The result is the master's degree research is completed. The result needs to have a time. The master's degree is completed by when? The obstacle is no appropriate supervision. Yes, she needs to communicate where her research is so that she can get the appropriate supervisor.
Sharif Yahya, I think he had a question.
Sharif Yahya?
So Sharif, you can speak now. We enabled your mic. Can you try? Hello?
Hello, I can hear you, Sharif, from far away. Sharif, go ahead.
Yes, I joined this session late, so
yes.
Catching up with what you were saying.
Okay.
So you are making now like a result model for what you want to do.
Yes.
As I see now, there is a result model for Ghada.
Yes.
Yes. Can I make my own result model?
Manar, what can he do?
It's similar to what Ghada posted.
Yes.
That I'm now accepted in master program at Switzerland.
Yes.
And I have already a vision for myself.
Right.
But the obstacle is like the financials.
Of course.
Yes. It's requiring a lot of finance and funds, but I'm working on it.
Yes.
There's an obstacle on the way.
Good. What do you do? How are you working on it? Because people need to learn how to work on finance as an obstacle.
I'm working on it. The main problem is I am married with a little girl.
That's not a problem. That's a wonderful blessing.
Yeah, I have a little girl, 1 year old.
Yeah, how do I finish my school when I have a family?
Yeah, but my family is very supportive to me. They are supporting me to pursue my dream and my masters.
Good.
So we are making taking a loan from banks, something, and work so I can finish my master.
Yes, because you're fully committed to this, right?
Yes, it's because I'm 28 years old, so I really won't finish my master's.
You will. You will. Sharif, I did my master's and my doctorate with 2 young children.
Oh, that's great.
And I don't know how I did it. I did it one day at a time.
It's very hard.
Yes. Who's speaking is Sharif who's speaking. It was very hard. I did it one day at a time. 2 babies and not much money. And I had to borrow money like you. And I lived on very little. And one day, you know, my daughter and my son watched me go through my master's and my doctorate. And one day when my son, when he was 12 years old, came to me and he said, "Mommy, is it okay if I just get a master's and not a doctorate?" He said that to me. So, you know, I should have told him no. So he got his master's, and now I want him to go for the doctorate. He doesn't want to do it. But here was the gift I gave them. I gave them watching their mother be committed to something and accomplishing it. And now both my children have master's degrees and are accomplishing things.
Yes,
they saw, and they did better. I served my children better watching me commit something than if I had bought them a lot of clothes and toys. They did better watching me do something.
That's very nice. It's the same thing to me that I want to make a model for my daughter.
Yes.
When she grew up, she sees her father pursuing his dream, committed to something big, and wanted to do something with his life. I want her just not be content with what is.
Exactly. Sharif, do download my book. It's like very inexpensive, and Manar posted a link to it. But you know, if you're up to something big, you should read my book because it tells you all the steps. But you already have the main step, which is that you're committed.
Yes, that's
the most important.
Yes, I'll read it for sure. Yeah.
I know that. I got it. All right. Well, let us know how we can help you. Ahmed wants you to. Very funny. Ahmed wants to support people who have funds questions. So definitely contact Ahmed for this. Ayman, did you want to talk? It says yes, please. So how do we let Ayman talk? Khaled, how do we let him talk?
And you can go ahead.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yes.
A couple of minutes ago, I just asked you about how to lead people, how to lead them to results and success.
Yes.
However, this time I'm asking about how to lead myself to success.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel myself less motivated and
yes.
less passionate about something to do, whether it's study or stuff. My vision for the upcoming 3 or 4 years is to get my bachelor degree, of course, and then continue my master's.
Yes.
But sometimes, as I just said, I feel less motivated.
Oh, wait.
So how to lead myself to get more?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, this is really important. With any long result, you get demoralized at places. Everybody, myself, everybody cannot remember what we're doing from time to time, why we should keep going, why we should bother to try to be great. It's very hard to do it alone. Here's the single most important thing. You need support from other people so that when you fall down, they can pick you up. You can't do it alone.
I've read that quote before, just saying, if you want to go fast, just go alone.
Right.
So there is a contradiction. You won't say what's already.
No, but the other part of it is if you want to go far, go together.
Go together. Yeah, right. You're right.
That's the second half of that quote.
That's the second half. Yeah.
Yes, and this is like an African saying, people who walk a lot. You know, if you want to go far, go with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know, my father told me a very nice quote about life. He said, it's a long distance race. So a long distance race are these races. It's not a 50-meter dash. It's 25 kilometers. That's life. And so you pace yourself slowly. But you can't do it alone. Here's the thing. You need people to support you. And you need to tell them, I need your help with this. just
Do
to
you
talk
really
to.
mean,
What?
yeah, do you really mean to get people to influence me, just like from my own age, or
Yes.
people just have already reached their goals and my dream is to be with them, so I can just get influenced from them?
Both.
Both of them.
Anybody who you get support from, you should be talking to a lot. Just people who make you feel better, or people who can teach you something you don't know. Or, you know, one time, before I began my doctorate, I asked my father, do you support me in doing this? Now, I have to tell you, my father was not supporting me financially for the doctorate. I did the loans myself. But that wasn't what I was asking. I was asking him, do you think this is something good for me to do, and will you be there when I have problems? And he said yes. And so sometimes I would be in the middle of a course, like one of these hard courses like statistics, and I can't even remember why I'm doing this anymore. But I can call up my father and say, I can't remember why I'm taking statistics. I'm lost. And he would say, because you want to earn that doctorate and make a difference. I go, oh yeah, I remember now. Thank you for telling me. So that type of emotional support you need from a lot of people.
Oh, good.
You got it. Listen, all of us, yes, statistics, yeah. All of us get demoralized. It's just the nature of being alive, my friend. That's alive. You know, we need help. We do need help. Yes, the Western model is everybody is a success all by themselves alone, but that's not actually reality about human beings. Reality, you know, you have to be careful as Egypt modernizes that you don't forget how dependent you are on other people. But this Western model makes it look like each individual succeeds on their own alone, and that's not accurate.
Statistics, so it's all about statistics, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that was my heart. That was my heart. I could do that. So good luck, and stay in touch with us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. That's good. So Renard, that's a good question. Well, I'll tell you, I renew my results model because every time I teach vision, I create a vision, and I keep seeing new things that I want. Now, this doesn't mean I want to be very busy. That's not part of my vision, is not being so busy that I can't spend time with my family or my friends or my grandchild or people I care about. But I do like to see into the future to see what's there. So send us by email or Facebook any other questions. Try this results model. Try to draft a result. Try to find an obstacle. Do a root cause analysis. Ask yourself several times why, and then take some actions, write some actions, and also write, the most important thing, write your challenge question at the bottom of the model. How am I going to achieve this result in the face of these obstacles? Right? Like, how will I achieve my master's degree in the face of having no appropriate supervisor? We want you to write that question for yourself, because that's the leadership question. Okay, so we're going to close in a minute, and we want to thank everyone for coming. We want to thank Egypt scholars and Khalid and Minar for making this possible, and for all the participants who are working on these things. And Ayman, thank you.